Ready?
Oh, I'm more than ready.
Let's do this. All right, folks. Hello, it's Kibiji, and which every week I encourage you to be geek, be proud, be awesome. I have such a special treat today because I have the legendary Mr. Austin Burke. We are rising through the ranks. Yes, I'm calling you legendary. Suck it up.
Yeah, right.
This is a guy that I've been paying attention to for a bit, as well as apparently he knows me, and we are going to be talking about Endgame spoilers today. So if you have not watched the movie, don't watch this video. Go watch it. Yeah. But Austin, can you introduce yourself and just say hello and what you do?
The crazy thing here is I have actually been subscribed to you for quite a while. So when you reached out to me, I was geeking out almost as hard, as I was during this movie. But I am on YouTube doing reviews and talking about comics and Netflix and streaming services. And I'm just so excited to be here because there's so much within this film. And a non-spoiler review does not do it justice. We're here to talk spoilers. And I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, thank you. That's a great and that's a great summary. And thank you for doing the geek out thing because that's exactly what we're about here. So, Austin has a review. You can check it out. I just posted like a very raw thing this morning myself as well. Nowhere near like my usual discussions. I just like straight off the fly.
Just threw it out there like, all right, here we go.
But yeah, if you could say in like a 1 minute summary, which is possible, but just like a very brief, like couple sentences, what you thought. Like I'll start and say, I thought Endgame was. If somebody asked me if this is a great conclusion to the Infinity Saga, I think it's a great conclusion. I think it's a movie to hardcore geek out about. It has tons of fan service, lots of heavy emotions in it, and there's things that I do have some issues with, but nothing that really overcame the mountain of great. And that's my general thoughts. What would you say?
I'm going to go about the same way that you went. I do have minor nitpicks, but when looking at the grand scheme of things and what you said, the mountain that they had to climb and what they had to accomplish with this film, it was a monumental task. But I had so much fun with this movie. I believe the last hour is some of the best comic book greatness that we have ever seen on screen. And really the first 2 hours, some things that people have issues with, I still enjoyed it for the character moments and the development for characters that have already been developed, so they didn't need it. But this movie was so long and the direction was so crisp that it was able to reestablish these characters and give us a payoff that I believe was magical. So I loved this movie with everything in me. It was better than I ever imagined. And those are my thoughts.
Which we were left to just imagine with this movie because the marketing was so freaking vague.
And I love
we got
that.
nothing.
Yes.
You know? So now that those are general thoughts, now we can get into like the hardcore stuff. So there's your final spoiler warning. We're going to get to the thick of it. But this movie starts off in the first hour. That's what we'll go about this first. We'll talk first hour, second hour, and last hour. But the first hour, this movie starts off right off the heels of Infinity War. Like
days.
Literally.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I said in my predictions video. I'm like, could this start out, minutes or hours or days? Then I'm like, no, but you see the time jumps in the trailer, so it's like you knew it was going in that direction, but I'm surprised with how close it was to the end of Infinity War.
Like me and my friend Tad called that it would start off with the Hawkeye stuff. Because what a great way, at least in my opinion, what a great way to really signify what's going on here, Even though you should have seen Infinity War, this was a great way to like say what's going on here and what are we dealing with in this movie. And it's the aftermath. This movie's called Endgame, but I would also call it Aftermath. Or Cleanup,
Avengers Cleanup. No, it really is. It starts out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, what happened to this
This is the most
character?
literal sense of avenging.
Yes. Oh, God.
Of all the movies, this is the most literal sense of avenging.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I love how it started out. You have the emotional moments with the character who maybe has been underserved so far, other than Age of Ultron. But it started you off on the heartfelt note that just carried all throughout the movie, and it was the perfect way to reestablish, like I said, that character and the rest of the characters. So I love that. Yeah.
And so the movie just picks up right away, and I admit the music at the beginning threw me off a bit because I didn't have a problem with it, but it's this really dark scene, and then all of a sudden you hear classic rock, and I was just like, what?
Okay.
But
felt Guardians-esque in a way. It felt a little bit Guardians.
It was.
Okay, all right. I don't
know and it's like a lot of things in this movie where it's things I noticed but didn't necessarily get super angry about or anything. There is one thing, but we'll get to that within this first hour, actually. But throughout this, I want to find out like what's an absolute favorite moment of yours or two. But arguably, my favorite moment for this movie, other than the last act, we'll talk about that later. But my favorite moment of this movie just might be right away with Tony's introduction when he gets on Earth.
Yes.
When he gets on Earth, Downey needs to like have an audience clapping and stuff because his performance was mad. Like, what did you think of that part?
Stripped down both emotionally, and we've seen him stripped down emotionally before, but never physically. And in this scene, you can see, his rib cage, you can see basically all of his bones, and he's not in good health. And hearing him try to argue with Captain America, but not being able to even get out of the chair without, like we see, passing out, his performance is phenomenal. And not that it needs Oscar reception or anything like that, because I don't care. It's not going to change the way I feel about the movie, but I would say it's worthy of some sort of consideration because he has taken this character that has had many levels and given it a brand new level, and I thought his performance in the beginning was awesome. Loved it.
Yep. Yeah. And, God, see, the reason why that scene's, like, arguably, I've been thinking about, like, what's my favorite moment of this movie, and even this scene... It's so high up there for me just because of, like, I love how he gets off that ship and, he and Cap had, the last time they were at each other's throats, but they both acknowledge and are emotional of all the shit they lost. And he's like, I lost the kid.
Oh.
I lost, and like, dude, are you kidding me? And him just letting it out on Steve. That's what I mean. Like, the physical stuff was really cool on, like, a VFX standpoint. Like, it was crazy. But just how much he lets it out on him, and it's like, I tried to prevent this. I tried, and you told me that we would lose together, and we couldn't even do that.
And his hug with Pepper,
love that.
His hug with Pepper is really for me what.
Yeah.
I got emotional. I got emotional with the Hawkeye stuff, but I'm like, that's it. I mean, she clearly loves him with everything in her, and you see that later on when they have a child together. But that hug really, for me, cemented that performance. I thought.
Yeah, and I will just briefly, quick, like. I think Pepper's arc in this movie was awesome because me personally, because like she's changed so much since like Iron Man 3 being the girl that, just stop doing this. You don't need to do this anymore. And my friend was arguing that it's because she finally saw this prophecy realized. But I think that's part of it maybe. But I also think that she's come to realize that you can't stop Tony. You can't stop him from doing what he's trying to do anymore.
That's a great point because... when they're talking there at the end, she says, are you going to be able to sleep if you don't do this? And Tony Stark, he can't sleep. He can't go on with his life the way he's living without saving his friends and saving half of the universe. Yes. So that's a wonderful point to bring up, and I agree with you. I think that is a big part of her arc, especially in this movie.
Yeah. So then moving on, that great-ass scene, then people start to gear up, and because of Nebula, and they know where he is, but... Yeah. Let's talk about Thanos just getting off right away. like literally right away. And I do just want to say, like, Thor at the start of this movie is exactly what I wanted him to be. Because I was like, either A, I want him to be totally broken because he blames himself, or B, just totally pissed and he wants to take it out on Thanos. And you get a bit of both. You really do. You get exactly both. And just him chopping off the head. And but the way he says it, like, he says it like he's still defeated, I went for the head. So, I don't know, what did you think about that whole thing with Thanos?
Well, even when he chopped off his head, you could tell Thor was still scared. He was petrified of Thanos. When you see it later on in the movie, he's shaking when they even mention his name. Hulk tries to mention his name. He's like, do not say that name, because Thanos... easily defeated Thor twice, and Thor gets that revenge, but at that point, it's a broken Thanos. It's a Thanos that really is no threat to anyone, and I just feel like Thor's character arc in this movie, starting with where he was at the beginning, being so angry all the time, as he likes to say it was great, and I think that served his character very well, and it led into what he is at the end of the movie, which was, we'll get into that here in just a second.
Sure. Let's just get to the mourning part. So I've heard a lot of folks say that the first hour of this movie especially is really slow. And I could totally understand that, because especially if you come off of Infinity War, because Infinity War was
non-stop.
Just non-stop, fast pace, a race car of a pace. Whereas And this movie's really, it is Aftermath. I thought it gave us a lot of great scenes, like Cap almost continuing the legacy that Sam had.
Yes.
I don't know if you felt that. Yeah.
Oh, man, I didn't think about it that way. That's a great point. I mean, the therapy group, and here's what I'll bring up about that moment. I believe that is the kind of heroic thing Cap was doing, and we'll get into this too. I know I keep fasting forward, but I believe when he goes back into the past, that's the kind of thing that Cap was doing growing up with Peggy, is helping veterans and helping people get over loss. And that's really, in my book, that's one of the most heroic things someone can do. So I love that scene. It really set up what he could have done when he went back to the past. So I thought it was great.
Yeah. But then, and I actually didn't think of that until my friend pointed that out. He was like, my friend said, like, because he's a bigger Cap fan than me, and he's just like, he's continuing Sam's legacy. I'm like, oh my God, you're right.
It's great.
And
it's great.
And the state of the world is crazy. Imagine the world that Scott wakes up to, and to me, that's like the second big emotional moment for me is like him seeing his daughter again. You know,
it's great.
Oh my God, and like how panicky he is. Please don't be here. Please don't be here. There's a lot in that last act that isn't necessarily fast paced, but it's more so to soak in the emotions of what's happened and what these characters are trying to fix. Bravo to Scarlett Johansson. That's another shout out for like a great scene at the beginning too. The actors were the most human they've ever been in this movie, man.
It's
like,
and it's the Russo brother effect. It is, but then again, at times in Infinity War, and I didn't really feel this way, but I'm like, does Scarlett Johansson, like, is she trying as hard as she should be trying? Because she just sat there. In this movie, any worry I had about that, which I didn't really have a worry about it, but that scene where she's sitting there with the feet up on the desk talking to the holograms and she starts crying in front of Captain America, I thought it was the best acting she's ever done in any of these movies. I thought it was phenomenal. Yeah. The layers to her character, they were so deep in that moment, and that was another great moment, and it really made you care that much more when what happens to her happens later on in the film.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, you know, I think the cast got to do that stuff because this movie, they weren't dealing with as much heroics. They were dealing more with the loss and correcting that loss. Whereas in, you know, Infinity War and every other movie, they're trying to prevent the world from ending. But this one, they have to deal with the fact that it already has. And I think that's why we get to see the cast really get fleshed out a lot more and get to do a lot of different stuff. When Scott comes back, we start to get introduced to the concept of time travel.
Oh.
To which, like, so many people, like, knew and thought and everything.
Yeah.
And it didn't bug me. Like, that's one question I do want to ask, because that's, like, probably the big spoiler factor of this movie, I would say, is the fact that it's confirmed to do time travel and stuff. Can you just share some brief thoughts, like, what you just think about time travel being the thing that, you know, kind of fixes everything?
It's a hard thing to pull off. And even movies that we love with everything in us, like Back to the Future, there are things you can look at and go, does that make sense? But the beautiful thing about this movie, and the more I thought about it, the more I've accepted certain things that I had issues with walking out of the movie, because there are moments where you can look at it and go, okay, does that make sense? Is that character going to end up here if this actually happens in the timeline? But Hulk even says it at one point. If we go back and we do
Hulk.
This, the Professor Hulk. I'm sorry, not Hulk. Dude, Professor Hulk. Are you kidding?
Dude, just briefly, I just love that moment so much. It was weird. I could see people not buying it, but I thought it was cool.
Oh, for anyone who is not like deep into comic books or who hasn't loved this franchise, if you go in blind and you see that, you're like, I'm out. I can see that.
Yeah, what the heck is this? Yeah, totally.
But when he says to the Ancient One, you know, what if what happens here goes off, it branches out into a new timeline, so that way when we are changing the past, it doesn't affect our future. See, that's when I looked at that and said, you know what? That makes sense to me. That makes more sense than going back, changing something, and it affecting the future, because everything that they did at the beginning of the movie, it never affected the future. So that had to be the case. It had to branch off into another timeline. And yes, they go and correct those changes, but then you look at Loki taking off with the cube. Is he back to the way it was and he's not actually escaping? Or did he take off with the cube and now he is in his own reality, and he does have his TV show coming out, and there are rumors
to which I don't want to talk too much about, like, what's coming necessarily
in the future.
We're going to focus on what's in Endgame, but absolutely, like, I think that could explain a lot of branching off.
But I
ideas,
think that moment is very important, because, you know, that says to me that Loki is now alive from that moment, you know.
From that, but that's the thing, from that strain, basically.
Yes. So
and
not
I
the
like
Loki we know.
that idea of strains, but I also like that they even like my perspective here. I agree with honestly pretty much everything you said, and as a play of humor, to which, by the way, this movie has some good humor in it.
It does.
I wasn't sure. I knew that it would have to have it because it's just like a staple of Marvel movies, but I was wondering like how much will be in this with what the plot is dealing with. And I'm glad they had it in.
Yes.
There's some moments I feel like it didn't necessarily be needed, but none of it felt forced. And that's the only time humor bugs me, is when it feels forced, except for one thing. And I'm going to transition into that now, being that. But just the humor thing, I liked that even they like play off of it and like, have you seen any like time travel movie? Like, you can't do that. I loved it. I thought that was funny. But we see Clint as a badass, and he's, I think what happened with his character is freaking gnarly. And Hulk and Hawkeye are my two favorite Avengers, FYI.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. So it was crazy to see like Clint become what he was.
Yeah.
And he has like a lot of emotional stuff going on in this movie, like holy hell. But to me, this is where we might get into a debate here, because I hear various opinions about this.
Okay.
My one thing I just did not care for in this movie. I get why they did it. I absolutely get why. I just don't like the way it was handled, was Thor. I didn't care for how Thor was handled. To me, what I'm telling people is that he got Draxed. He got Draxed. And what I mean by that is that he kind of got Disneyfied. He became this thing that is very believable.
Yes.
But I think it got a bit exaggerated in the Disney way or something.
Yes. It's an interesting point because in his own way he did, and I have that issue with Guardians too. I think Drax was a significantly more over-the-top character than Guardians 1, right? So
yeah, totally.
You could say the same thing about Thor in this movie. The reason why I liked it, and I wasn't expecting the choice, one, so it came off as like, oh, that was surprising, but Thor did literally every epic thing you could possibly do in Infinity War. So what is the only other choice that they have? I mean, they could make him, be awesome again, but that fight at the end with Thanos, he's going to take down Thanos with one swing if he is at his heights as he was in Infinity War, right? You have to dumb him down in a way, and I don't mean dumb him down like character-wise, but he was bigger, he was out of shape. Now, they did go a bit over the top with him making the jokes and a little corny. I'm like, all right, that may be a bit too much, but physically, I think you had to nix him in a way. Otherwise, you couldn't have included him in that battle because he would have taken Thanos out easily if he was in shape, right? So I liked that choice, even though I kind of agree with you there. They did go a bit over the top with it.
Yeah, and I actually debate about if Thor was actually really that much weaker than he was. I actually debate that.
Interesting. Okay.
Because he doesn't have the body he used to, but I feel like he still potentially has the same amount of power, if not potentially more, because he has both hammers, but we'll get into that.
Possibly. But for me, it was like, it was physical, a lot of physicality, but it was also like this mental state that he was in, just playing the video games and like, a breakup, you eating the ice cream, you're like, oh my God, my boyfriend broke up with me.
Yeah.
He was very, I just don't think he was all there, and I don't want to say it like that, but I think that kind of took him out of that battle at the end. Otherwise, I think he could have been a bit more powerful, especially two hammers, man.
And I think the main thing, and I will say, I like how he came back being a talk from his mommy. I think that's if anybody's to get you back on your feet, it's going to be your parents. And he already had a good talk with his dad in Ragnarok.
Yes.
And so this is the time that he gets to talk with his mommy. And so I thought that worked, but I just think that it makes sense because it adds to that human effect. It adds to that human effect that all these characters are coming down to. Yeah. And that's why I get the choice. I just don't like the way it was executed
I get that.
Yeah, so just like the beer belly and it being comedic. That's the thing. I would like for it to have been very, not dark, but just, like, what the hell has happened to you kind of a thing. But
tragic. Tragic, yeah.
So anyways, though, Tony as a kid.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't tell you, my audience, like, there was like so many people like, oh my God.
Yeah. I love you 3000. Like, all right.
Oh my god.
Dude,
oh
come
my
on.
god. I was like 3,000 over 9,000.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, over 9,000? It's 3,000. Whatever.
Yeah, but he's living the life that he teased at the end of Age of Ultron, I think.
Yeah.
You know, just like maybe to do that for Pepper one day, and that's what he's finally doing. And he's doing that being a broken Avenger, really, because, again, that intro scene was great, and that's really him losing the will to just do anything about this anymore. He figures out the time travel stuff, and I love his reaction, you know, just like, holy shit. Oh my God. Like, yeah, like, oh shit, this is real. But more so comments before getting into like them actually doing the time travel. Is there anything else about the movie before they actually do the jump that you want to mention? I do like that Clint is the one that volunteers. I think that's cool because he's the most like hardcore vengeance at this point. That used to be Thor, but now it's like Clint, and he's just like, if there's a chance, I'm doing this shit. I've killed so many people. Yeah. Screw it.
Another scene that I really liked this is so stupid, but the taco scene when Ant-Man is
so
sitting
many people say that.
I don't know why. I don't know why I liked it so much. It was just like it's something I would do. I saw myself in that situation, like, you know, sitting there eating and something drives by and just takes all of your food away, and I'm just like, come on, man. So I saw myself in that situation. I don't know, man. I loved that scene. It was so funny to me.
And it's funny, my audience, like, they all went, "Aw," when Banner gives like another taco to him. I was just like,
all right, whatever. Yeah, that was
Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
Which I will say, if I was asked what my funniest moment of the movie was, it's no, he wants a picture too. Come on,
that's great.
He wants.
It's a great moment.
That's probably my funniest. That was probably the hardest I laughed at the movie. So yeah, they go back in the past. And honestly, I want to let you kick off here. Any thoughts you have about?
For me, it's going back to the moments from the movies that we love and movies that we don't love. I don't love Thor: The Dark World, but honestly, this movie made me appreciate that. Even though I still don't love the movie, it made me appreciate that story a bit more. And then seeing the different points of view of situations, I had no clue the Ancient One was fighting in New York in 2012. Now we assumed, right, but we didn't know. And confirming that. And hearing the moments behind the scenes, and then seeing Robert Redford and Hydra and the elevator. Oh my God!
Can I just say that I was so impressed by all those your elevator. That elevator.
Oh my God!
I will say, like I don't know about your audience, but everyone was freaking out at that elevator part. And I'm just like, it's so funny how just being in this situation is making people cheer. Because they know what it exactly is. Yeah. Just the second he walks in, everybody's just like, oh.
I wanted him to
because it's such an iconic, you know, fight scene or whatever. But then they even pay tribute. Exactly, they pay tribute to that comic or whatever. Just Hail Hydra, you know. And that's what I mean. I think this portion of the movie, I want to, and I'm so curious about your thoughts on this, is that I was worried if they do time travel and they go back and go to these key moments and stuff, that it would be like, I forget what the expression is, but like flaunting their stuff a bit. And I think they handled it well. I don't think that there was any moments that they really tried to replay an entire scene, but more so play out a scene just to introduce where it is.
Yes.
And that's just my personal perspective, but I could get some people maybe thinking that, but I don't think they overdid it. You know, they didn't flaunt it too much. What do you think about that?
Well, it reminds me of last year when Wreck-It Ralph 2 came out, and you had all of the Disney princesses in there, and it's like, oh, Disney's just kind of, which I like that scene, but then you also shoehorn a ton of stuff in that movie, and Disney's kind of showing their stuff, what they have, right? What I liked about how it was handled in this movie is you didn't get, now you got certain iconic scenes, but you got them from different angles, right? When Peter Quill is, you know, singing to himself, and it's so awkward, and then you get behind when they're all standing in front of Loki. I'm like, that's great. And the line, what was the line from Robert Downey Jr.? He's like, all right, guys, we're standing here too long, or something like that. It was something just quippy, funny, something that we didn't see in the actual movie. So I liked the behind the scenes of our favorite scenes. I thought that was really
and that's
cool.
really what it was. It felt like a behind the scenes thing, and they didn't even really replay key moments, and that's the thing. It's like you said, like you're experiencing it from a different perspective.
Yes.
And Cap versus Cap. Hello.
What's up with that, man?
That was one of the moments where I was laughing, and I couldn't decide if it was between hype or hilariosity or whatever. It was just so weird, and
when he
I did kind of like choke at my friend. Go ahead. What
the joke? What was the line? The Cap's ass line. I thought that was so funny.
Yes.
And when he said Bucky is alive, I'm like, what a perfect way to just what? Huh?
Distract.
And then boom. Right
Yeah,
to the
he's
face.
gonna hear that. Yeah, yeah, because he did the same exact thing in Civil War. Skullbone said like the same thing, like your old pal Bucky, and then that's what makes him drop his guard. So he knows that's a weak point of his.
That's wow. Didn't even think
and
of
my
that.
friend didn't say that. I thought of that one.
That's great. I love that. I didn't think of it. Oh man,
It's a weakness of his. Yeah.
yes, it is. Oh wow.
But point is, I didn't feel like they flaunted their stuff. And like you said, I liked how they had the different perspectives of it. And it really made you appreciate the franchise so much more. Because that's what this movie was. We'll get into like overall feelings at the end. But like the time travel stuff was really something to make you reflect on like what this franchise has done. And the thing I want to wrap up with kind of like the time travel stuff is Tony seeing his dad and Steve seeing Peggy through the window. What are your thoughts on just that whole bit, like that whole sequence?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I loved about it is what I call the three main Avengers, Thor, Captain America, and Tony Stark, they're all reliving people that they have lost between Thor's mother and Tony Stark's dad, and then, of course, Peggy. And it really digs deep in the emotions, but it also gives them those moments to reflect on the lives that they have lived so far and how important this mission is, because we are leaving our legacy for the ones that are, coming back if we don't make it out of this situation. And we are experiencing these moments, such as when Tony Stark's dad tells him, what does he say before he walks away? He's like, I can do this, or I'm going to love my son or be as good of a father as I can possibly be.
He's kind of inspired, yeah.
Exactly, from that conversation. And what a touching moment between all three of those characters. But the fact that they had to travel back and get the cube was interesting
Including
to me.
eat a salad.
Oh, yeah. Well, that part was interesting to me because that's when it got a bit more convoluted, because they were there getting the stone, and the stone disappeared, and then they had to go back even further, and I'm like, all right, but the Pym particles thing and going on the extra side mission because they failed on the first mission, I'm like, that's an interesting level that I didn't expect this to go down. So at the end of the day, I liked it for the emotion that scene evoked.
Yeah, and so I agree with you, and I meant initially when I was seeing specifically the Tony and Steve bit when they're at the facility,
yes,
I sort of, at the time, once I see the complete journey, I forgave this. I felt like Tony was getting a little bit too much time with his dad during that. But at the same time,
kind of agree.
Like, I feel like it's honestly, after finishing the movie, I'm fine with it. Because I wouldn't want it to be so short that it's just a cameo. I like that it's actually a part of his arc, because, he has a kid now, and he gets it. And what happens with Tony at the end of the movie, it really adds to that finality to him. Mm-hmm. But I was also like, crap, man, Steve's getting gypped. He's just staring at Peggy through a window, and you're having this entire, 2 scenes with your dad.
Yeah.
Natasha and Clint. I have to bring this up, because this is, the big key, I would say the big key emotional part of the middle act. I love that they fight each other.
Yes.
Because there's no way they would just surrender the other to sacrifice themselves. There's no way.
Yes. No.
I could see some people thinking it's a bit comedic that they're fighting, but it's realistic.
It is.
I'm going to stop you by whatever means to live. What I didn't care for is that they reused the soundtrack and almost the same shots that Infinity War did. I could see some people thinking that's poetic, and I get that, but it's because that moment with Thanos in Infinity War felt like both a sad but also triumphant moment. This is more of a pure sad thing, because Clint isn't choosing to do this. Neither of them is choosing to do this, to sacrifice the other, because they want to volunteer themselves. So I just felt like it's a different emotion than what they were giving off. But that's totally just my opinion. But yeah, just a minute or two of your thoughts on that scene.
I agree with the poetic aspect of it. I thought, in a way, I saw what they were going for. Okay, we're going to relive this moment through these characters and then sacrifice one of them. In another way, I liked the music cues and the music choices for the most part in the movie. that was a very Thanos score for me. That was a very Thanos underlay. And using it for that moment didn't necessarily click, but I saw the beauty within that, right? Yeah. The one thing for me about this scene is this was actually spoiled for me in my comment section before I saw the movie. Oh. So I knew Black Widow. This was the only thing that I got spoiled on, but I knew Black Widow was going to die. So in that moment, there was a bit of emotion.
Did you know the circumstances or just that she was going to die?
No circumstances, but
okay, at least there's that.
Exactly. So I didn't know when exactly in the movie. I'm like, oh, final battle. But when they go on top of that, I'm like, crap. You know, it's just it's a hard thing to avoid.
Yeah, if you know what's coming, then you know what's going to... Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And this was on a random video that had nothing to do with the Avengers. This was on like my Cobra Kai video, I believe. So yeah, it sucked. Oh my gosh. It sucked, but overall, I thought the scene was really well done with some minor nitpicks here and there.
We have to keep moving. there's so much, man. But mission accomplished. You got all the stones. They make a new gauntlet. And it makes sense. I love that they do a callback to... The Tesseract gave off gamma radiation, so that's why they recruited Banner. Yes. I thought that was a neat callback, and it's like, I was made for this. And I thought it was a bit weird. I don't know if you feel differently here, but it's one of the many things I'm willing to roll with here, like frickin' Scott coming out from a rat. From a freaking rat. I have a friend that hates that to death.
So
like, that's
convenient.
Her biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so convenient, yes. But the ship being able to travel through time... I'm willing to buy that, like, but I'm just like, how do you make an entire ship do that? I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Oh, yeah, good point.
Can we, just like 1 minute of thoughts on Thanos on this movie. I know it's kind of like a curveball, but I like how Thanos in this movie he's still the same.
Yeah.
But he's super competent without the gauntlet, first off, battle-wise, holy shit. And he's trying to continue what his future self did, and it's like they aren't thanking us, so I'm gonna reset. But I don't know. I thought Thanos was still a great villain in this movie. But what are your thoughts on him?
It's very interesting because it's hard because I felt as if it was the same Thanos that was just defeated because they have the same mindset, and he did sit there and relive everything that happened in the future. So now this is my destiny. But the fact that he was so skilled without the gauntlet at the end, fighting the three best Avengers, in my opinion.
Even more.
Everybody, man. And he almost did it again. If Captain Marvel wouldn't have jumped in last second.
He almost did. That's what I thought, too. I'm like, he's about to do it again.
He's about to do it again, man. The same thing he just did. And what give part 3 next year. But I thought his character was very interesting. It went in a way that I didn't expect. I didn't think the past Thanos was going to come back to the future, but as soon as that storyline started to get set up, I'm like, and I saw one TV spot where he's standing there holding the thing, so I'm like, all right, there has to be a battle at the end. And sure enough, there was, and his character was very interesting in this movie, went in ways I didn't expect.
And I'm really happy, because I was worried, because I thought Thanos was like genius in Infinity War. And and I just didn't want that to get lowered from this movie, and I truly feel like it didn't. It's a very a different perspective of Thanos, but it's still him. It's totally still him.
It was.
But we get our original Trinity to fight him, and I love he's just sitting there waiting for it. It's like, what are you gonna do?
What's up, bro?
I'm just gonna wait for whoever comes to me. I'll be ready. Yeah. It's me. So Thor's got both of his hammers. Trinity's fighting.
Yeah.
And we get into arguably one of the most hypest moments of the movie.
Ever.
Being, did you say ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was hype.
Cap gets the hammer. Cap is worthy. To which I'm just going to let you go for a moment. What'd you think of that?
My body wasn't ready for that. No, this is something that in my theories video, I actually predicted they would go back in the past and get the hammer, and I predicted that Captain America will hold the hammer. Now, whether or not I actually believe that, I just never thought I would see it on the big screen. And seeing Cap fight with his shield in one hand and the hammer in the other hand, I wanted to stand up and cheer. I didn't, but I wanted to.
Did your crowd at least cheer?
Oh, our crowd went. That was the most hype moment of the entire movie. It was fantastic.
And it goes into that sense that this movie, it does have a lot of things I'm sure people were hoping / expecting.
Yes.
And and which is fine because a lot of it is what we hope to happen. And, you know, when we get our hopes and dreams realized, it's great. It's kind of crazy how Cap is just wheeling this thing like he's been for ages. He's bouncing it off of his shield.
He's shooting lightning. He's doing
Exactly. He's shooting lightning. He's bouncing off his shield, and he's doing combos with it. I'm like, what the crap?
Everything that people said about Rey in Star Wars is like, okay, come on now.
Dude, I mean, okay, yeah, but
I'm fine with it, by the way. I'm okay with that.
exactly, I'm fine with it too. But like, if people want to get really cynical, then like, I get it. But I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah.
But then we get to the most, probably to me, my most iconic shot of the movie is just all the armies are out and Cap is standing in front of all of it with his broken shield, and it's just him. That's it. It's just him in this shot, and he's just in front of an entire army, just puffed out chest. And then we get to the moment that I would say is the second part that the crowd starts cheering. Where just everybody shows up.
On your left. On your left, man. On your left. When Falcon says on your left,
yeah.
The hearken
Which is funny. I actually didn't catch that when I was watching it. Because I heard Sam. It sounded like Sam. I just heard, hey Cap. Yeah. But I think it started to break up, and I didn't hear the on your left part. But that's awesome.
All of the callbacks to all of the prior movies, even not even going back and visiting the movies, just the lines from Winter Soldier and the lines from the first Avengers. I'm like, this is... And the music cues as well. I thought it was brilliant.
Oh yeah, and I love that it doesn't instantly start. It's so quiet.
Oh god,
it's so quiet when like I think the first to show up is it's Black Panther, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just him, and there's no words.
Yeah.
It's just like just no. I love that it's in silence, and then everybody starts coming through, and then the music starts to rise, and Avengers theme, and then. This was literally, I have a video that's either out now or about to come out that's like my premiere day experience that like, I'm like, number one thing I want to happen. I need Cap to lead the charge screaming Avengers Assemble. And it happened. It happened. It is a cheesy line, and I think the way they delivered it was the most realistic way you could.
I agree. That's always been something for me. That even in the cartoons, it's like Avengers Assemble. It's so cliche, but it is something that we were teased in Age of Ultron. We have wanted to hear him say it for so long. So if he would not have said it, I would have said missed opportunity there. Yes, and they executed
and they had to do it with like, you know, as much as they're wrapping up in this movie, and if they saved it for a moment, it's this moment.
That's the moment, man.
It's this moment.
Yeah,
because literally you have not a couple of Avengers, you have everybody there.
Like
everybody.
Super Smash Bros. Everyone is here. That is nothing.
I literally thought about
to this. Everyone is here.
That's the true nerdgasm of the movie that everybody is referring to, like for sure. Like, what's 2 or 3 moments from like after everybody shows up, like favorites of yours?
Well, I loved the kind of the harkening back to Infinity War where they're passing the gauntlet around, trying to keep it away again. I thought that was cool.
The most hardcore game of Halo Oddball.
Like, no,
that's all I can think of.
Hot potato the gauntlet, man. But you get character mix-ups that you didn't expect, like Valkyrie and Spider-Man. Yeah. Who would have ever imagined seeing that? And then you've got Korg.
And it's not just
around.
Valkyrie; it's the woman. It's the woman.
The women like. And that I even liked that moment when they're all charging for. There are so many moments. Here's the thing about that battle too is you could look at it and say, you know, maybe there's a fight over here happening that I want to see. I wanted to see Hulk get in on the action a bit more, but of course at that point he had messed his arm up, so there you go. But
I will say that's kind of one of my cons is that Hulk action-wise was really, I wanted a bit more from him in this movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm okay with it, but he definitely got short mind in this.
He did.
But I'm sorry, keep going.
No, you're fine. Really, if you think about it, the snap is the most important thing to happen, so he got that moment, but...
Yes, very true.
Action-wise, I wanted a rematch against Thanos. I just did.
Or at least to even be involved.
Yes,
you know?
And he wasn't really involved, but that's fine. You know, you have the... there's so many battles. I can't even think of the specific battles, but... The moment that really hit me the hardest during that entire thing was Cap with the hammer, and for me, that's seeing that again is what I'm going to focus on.
And then Thor and Cap like juggling it. No.
Yes.
I want this one.
Which hammer do I get? They have the opposite.
That was like the notice you copied my beard.
Yeah. It's the same moment. Yeah, I really that exchange was fantastic.
I think my favorite comedic moment is for sure like Spider-Man's back and it's like, Veronica, activate kill mode.
Kill mode. Yes.
Or Karen, I don't remember the name, but yeah, Karen just
such a harken.
And then it just cuts back to him later on and there's like bodies piled around him. Like, okay,
whatever. I love that.
That was hilarious.
Yes,
that was hilarious. We haven't touched upon a lot of stuff like freaking Gamora.
Back. Yep.
Yeah, just and who knows in what capacity back because it's not the same Gamora, but I do like that we got a moment between her and Peter, Peter Quill.
Me too.
And I was just like, really? Him?
It's going to be difficult to convince that character of what all has happened. So I honestly think that's a good direction for Guardians 3. I think it could work out well for them.
And I will just point out probably my key, most badass moment of Thanos is not only is he brawn, he is smart.
Oh,
when
yeah.
Captain Marvel shows up and they have a great one-on-one, she prevents him from closing his gauntlet. He's just like, he takes it out and does a punch with like the Power Stone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome.
Brilliant.
That is awesome.
And he knows he can handle it, so he does it.
Yeah.
And it's not a second thought. It's wonderful.
Yeah. But let's get to the literal end emotions of this movie. Because, the time machine blows up.
Yeah.
The van, to which, of course, is the van. And Strange exchanges the look. And I like that. I thought that was a weird moment, too. What?
Just the one. When he holds up the one.
The one, yeah.
For me, when he held up that one, I knew Tony was going to die. I just knew it because he saved Tony in Infinity War for him to die in this movie. Just tragic.
And that sounds so brutal, but it's like what had to be done, you know?
Yeah.
But, and what a way for the last words of the thing that started it all to be like the quote that starts it all,
Perfect.
Like that, I didn't know. I honestly, I hear some people knew, but when he said, I'm just like, I actually don't know what he's going to say here.
Yeah.
But then when he says, "Am Iron Man?" I'm just like, wow.
And then the second you see his charred, because Hulk had the charred body, but when you see Tony Stark's charred body, you're like, oh, nobody can survive that.
Yeah,
Nobody.
yeah.
Human, anyway.
But I like that they just had his closest people come up, too. You first
that's
see
it.
Rhodey, and then
Yes.
Peter, and Pepper.
Yeah.
And Pepper just, not even, she holds it together there.
She knew his purpose.
She knew, yeah.
Yeah.
She totally knew. Yeah. She understands, and she needs, he succeeded. He won.
He did
what he finally set out to do.
He did it.
And by his literal hand, too.
By his hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen a video of, it's like a behind the scenes thing, and they're, all the directors, all the cast, they got so many people together. And the reason I bring this up behind the scenes is because I truly believe, during the battle, everybody, there's no way everybody was on location there. No way.
No.
That was all VFX heavy. No way.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
I am going to be bold and say at the funeral, I think everybody was there. Because
okay,
that video of the Kevin Feige doing cheers with all the cast and crew there, if you look at the location there, it looks so similar to Tony's cabin.
Really? Okay.
It looks so similar. I need to find this video again and double check, but I could have swore it's by a lake and it's by all this green, same looking place, and I'm like, that would be crazy if you got the actors there to do this shot.
So, but maybe they didn't know what they were there for, but that could be a moment of, maybe we know that we're here for a funeral. Whose funeral? We don't necessarily know. God, man, that's crazy. And then that's the perfect moment to get everyone together too, because you need the emotion bouncing off of each other. I love that. I love that.
Totally. I want your thoughts on just Tony moving on, as well as Cap's thing.
Oh man. Well, Captain America is my favorite Avenger. He's my favorite Avenger. He's always been my favorite Avenger. Yes. And when Tony died and they were at the funeral, I'm like, Cap is safe. Good.
Yeah.
More Cap. And then the second he goes back to the past.
Yes.
You know what he's doing. He missed his opportunity to talk to Peggy, and sure enough, he ends up there. And then what I thought was a really cool way, now how long has he been sitting on that bench? We don't know. But what I thought was really cool is when he just appears on the bench, and it's incredible motion capture, probably a mix of makeup and motion capture, but oh my
I was about
God.
to say, I honestly think that might have been makeup, but who knows?
Possibly.
But it's totally old Steve.
Dude.
Totally.
And his old Steve voice was awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it was so good. And
Yeah.
passing the mantle to Falcon with, Falcon's he's going to need some help in the gym because he doesn't have a super soldier ability, but passing that mantle, passing the shield over, and his lines and seeing the ring, I'm just like, that's, yep.
What do you think about, like, how Bucky and Steve didn't really have a moment after the snap? Because I have something about that. I'm just curious about you.
It bothered me at first.
Uh-huh.
It bothered me at first. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, because Bucky was the one that kind of nodded when Falcon was freaking out, like, oh my gosh, where's Cap? Bring him back. Bucky's like, I know. And allowing Falcon to have that moment, but Bucky not having that moment, I think it's just that, because clearly he and Steve are the better friends than Falcon and Steve. But it's a friend-to-friend kind of, you've lived your life, you know that you lived your life. And I think that hug before Cap went in, I think Bucky knew at that point what he was doing too. I truly do. I'm going to have to see the movie again to confirm that, but that moment, not even saying anything to Bucky, bothered me at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, okay, I get that. I understand why they didn't do it.
My thought is that, because I had the same friend of mine that's really ticked about the rat, she was a little bit mad that Steve and Bucky didn't have a moment. And my thought was that when he was looking at Steve on the bench, the reason he let Sam go is because he and I have had our time. And we've already done so much together. Yeah. And you deserve this more. Like, he and I've had him all my life, and you deserve this more, kind of a thing. Not necessarily more, but it's like I've had my share, So
that's a great way to look at it. Your I think your diagnosis is actually a bit better than mine, because they've had everything their entire lives, and he didn't just meet Falcon, but they're newer friends, and I'm going to pass the mantle to you, but I know that you are always going to be the man that I've known you to be for the last few years. Yeah. And you are not that evil person that everybody thinks you were in Winter Soldier. And that's a beautiful, poetic, wonderful moment for his character. And then, of course, the dance at the end with Peggy.
Dude. And see, that's where, so, like, it was so neat to see just, everybody kept saying, like, the two Avengers, like, okay, Steve or Tony's going to die. Steve or Tony's going to die. And while they both don't die, they both are concluded. And they are the key two Avengers, arguably. Like, Thor is the other of the Trinity. And Thor, in a sense, has his story wrapping up, too, because he doesn't feel the sense to be a unique, like, the Thor he's been. Yes. So now he's trying to become a new kind of Thor. I don't know. Again, I wasn't too big of a fan of Thor in this movie. And that's only because I adored him in Infinity War. Infinity War was the best Thor, in my opinion.
He was great.
This movie just did such a good job of concluding so much.
Yeah.
So much. And that's like the biggest strength I give it. Drop another comment or two before we kind of wrap it up.
I thought the only way for Cap to go out in this movie, for me to be happy, was for Cap to go out on a heroic note. You have to end it Cap sacrificing. Because I said this. I said, in the first Cap, he sacrifices himself in the ice. In the second Cap, he sacrifices himself when he's on the 3 ships. And this, third time's the charm. He does it. He wins. I like this better.
I actually very much. I don't think they could have handled Cap's end any better.
It's perfect
because it's so fit. I would say it's perfect. It's perfect.
Perfect. Yes.
Because I think if he just sacrificed himself again, I feel like it would have gotten similar to Loki dying. Like we've seen this too many times. We've seen this too many times. It's still gonna be like heroic and sad, but it's just we've seen it. We've seen it before. But this was perfect. It was perfect.
I agree.
If you have any big cons with the movie, what are they?
Well, I gave the movie the highest score I've given in a long time, but I
was like, come on, there's got to be something.
I did, but when I give a movie that high of a score, movies are always flawed. The Dark Knight, my favorite movie of all time, it's a flaw. There are elements in there you can be like, well, they could have done that differently. Could have done that differently. Being a massive fan of the comic books and being massive fans of these characters, I don't see what else they could have done. with this movie. Incorporating the time travel, giving us those moments with the characters, reliving the old movies, which is something I never in a million years saw them doing, and then giving us a two-part saga, one which is the brawn in Infinity War, one which is the brains in Endgame, but both of them are very distinct films that conjoin and combine together into
different. Yes.
Two of the best, part one, part twos I've ever seen in my life. I just thought Endgame was fantastic. Now, nitpicky-wise, I did have some nitpicks. There were a couple of moments towards the end where, like I said, I wanted them to focus on maybe some more fights, like we've seen these characters fight before. Okay, can we see who Drax is fighting right now? That would be cool, because Drax always gets shortchanged on the action. There's a lot to handle in situations like that. And then the time travel stuff, I have to see the movie again for that, because
for sure
things don't add up. And the fact that you have people coming back who got snapped 5 years ago into the now present, and they're the same age, yet the ones who were here are 5 years older, so there's going to be younger sisters that are now older sisters. There's going to be people who were in high school.
I am looking at Spider-Man.
Yes.
All the Spider-Man characters. That's going to be weird. I already feel like that's a continuity weirdness.
They have to explain that, or I will be very upset, because that is a major thing. It is literally, it's going to be chaos for a lot of people in the world at that time, so they have to at least hit on it somewhere down the line, or I'm going to be like, continuity.
And we didn't touch upon that, but when they said 5, I'm like, okay, months. Years. Whoa.
I thought of SpongeBob 5 years later.
SpongeBob?
Like, that's it. Yeah, that's the SpongeBob thing. But
I knew there was going to be, I totally guessed there was going to be a time skip, but I didn't think it was going to be 5 years. That's
5 years.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot to catch up on for a lot of people.
To me, my number one is for sure Thor. And I didn't hate it. It's just definitely something that I'm just like, I feel like this could have been so much better.
I get it.
But that's my main big thing. The conveniency stuff, sure, but it doesn't. It's not something that I'm gonna super hold against it. It's just something I acknowledge is there.
Yeah.
I definitely think, even though Professor Hulk is great, like I said earlier, I would have liked to have gotten more action Hulk.
Me too.
Me too. And this is another thing I could logically say makes sense, but just like Hulk, I feel like they could have found a way to give more to Captain Marvel. She is at the first 10 minutes of this movie and the last 10 minutes of this movie.
Yep, I agree.
But it makes sense. She explains at the beginning, there's lots of other planets that need me and stuff, but it's like, I really wanted you to be a bigger part of this than just here and then dip out for a while.
Yeah, I didn't love her in Captain Marvel. I thought she was, she was okay, but I thought there were issues with the script and the screenplay, and maybe it was the direction. I did think the Russo brothers handled her a lot better in this movie, even though she was shortchanged on time. She's got to go off and do things with other planets. I'm like, all right, it's a good excuse, and she is kind of a game changer. Just like the whole nixing Thor thing, you had to kind of nix Captain Marvel, even though Thanos did end up outsmarting her in a way. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Not a lot of Captain Marvel in this movie. Something I didn't expect.
There's probably a total of 5 minutes of her actually on screen.
Seriously. Maybe
a little bit more, but yeah. What do you think about there being no post-credits?
I like it. I like it.
I love it.
I think it's suiting, man. It's suiting for this is the last movie in the Infinity Saga, and it ends, actually, there's that little, and this isn't post-credits by any means. People are making videos about this. I'm like, what? This is the little audio cue at the end. The Iron Man the hammer smash hitting his...
I think that was just tribute.
Is just tribute. And it was a beautiful tribute, but I thought that was the perfect way to do it. I don't think there needed to be a post-credit scene.
Yeah, I love that there wasn't a post-credits just because...
It's great.
It really adds a sense of finality, because this movie, if somebody asked me what's the strongest point about this movie, I would say it's how conclusive it is. It's insanely conclusive in so many ways.
Return of the King level conclusive.
Yeah, and so I love that there isn't a mid or post credit scene, but they have a super dragged out cast scroll. That was beautiful. That was so beautiful to really reflect on what everything the MCU has done. And then it's totally well-deserved. And that's another phrase I would sum up this movie, is well-earned. If one phrase, I would say a well-earned film or whatever. But the key 6 Avengers just straight up having like their autographs or something. I was like, it's well earned. I kind of feel like other people deserve a shine too, but they all did. Yeah. But if they are gonna make anybody shine, then it makes sense that it's the original 6.
Yeah. Another thing that I find just cool about this movie in general is that Paul Rudd and Jeremy Renner got to play a big part in everything,
totally.
And they didn't get to do that with Infinity War. So I loved seeing that, man.
Big
that made me
parts
so
too.
Happy. So
really
happy.
Big parts.
Yes, and I love that both on screen and off screen on all the press tours and things. I'm like, this is great because they didn't get to do that in Infinity War and have fun and do all the things with the cast. So it just adds to.
And
the movie.
they and the 6 being highlighted especially because I totally agree with you. I love that Paul Rudd and I just love that they got that time. But the 6 being highlighted also, I just realized just now that all 6 of them aren't really active anymore except for Thor, because Iron Man's dead, Steve's retired basically, in the most literal sense possible. Black Widow's dead. Clint's still alive, but he's got his family back, so I feel like he's not going to be in the game anymore, just like as he planned. Hulk, he could come back, but he lost his arm. Exactly, his arm. Now, Thor is really the only one, but he's like a different Thor now, and he's just being part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, potentially. So it's like the key 6 Avengers are no longer... Yeah. So if they highlighted the 6, I didn't think about that until now. Like, literally just now. So that makes sense to me.
That's a wonderful point. I mean, that's basically it. We'll get more Hemsworth, but I do think Hemsworth is way more up for being in these movies. I think Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, we had our time, we're good. And Hemsworth's like, let's go, I want to do another. So I'm okay with that.
As long as it's a heat back. Any closing statement, like just from me, I love the movie. I will say, I don't want to rank it anywhere. That's why I was impressed that you did this in your new video. He has a ranking video. You should check it out. He re-ranked everything. Yeah. Sacrifice sleep for it. Yeah. But I just don't think I can rank it until I've either seen it again or at least simmered on it, because there's so much heavy emotions in this. There are issues I have with it. Nothing super glaring for me, except for Thor. And as a fan, I absolutely loved it on a conclusive level, totally. So just a closing statement from you.
Just a wonderful experience, both, being in there with my family and others who are with friends, just enjoying it together, because you have people watching this movie who aren't necessarily comic fans, people who maybe just caught Infinity War on Netflix and said, you know what, I'm going to go see this Endgame movie, see how it goes.
I'm just a fan of the movies. I haven't read the comics.
Well, see, there you go. And that's what I'm saying, bringing everyone from all of these different sections of the world, whether you're fans of the comics or the movies or whatnot, it's a wholesome experience. And the fact that they delivered on the quality and the directing. And my final thing I want to say, I've already praised this movie enough. I want to say thank you, Russo brothers, for doing this, just for being a part of this, bringing your wit and your skill, and Marcus and McFeely, the writers, all of them behind the scenes who have been a part of this universe for so long. Thank you. And they said it before the movie came out. We worked on Infinity War, and it was hard to figure everything out, and Thanos and this and that. We knew we had Endgame. We knew it. Yeah. We knew what we had, and they delivered. And I think a lot of people are going to love this movie. And if you haven't seen it yet, why'd you watch this video, man?
Oh, God, no.
Sorry.
And I'm going to one-up you and say, thank you, Kevin Feige.
Oh, yeah, the man.
You need to be praised, because that's the man that everybody needs to praise for everything.
Legend.
He absolute legend in the producer world now. No question as to what he and his team has done. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
But Austin, thank you so much for being on this show. I just really appreciate it, man. And I'm glad we got to talk about this movie. Truly.
Dude, it was so much fun. I appreciate you having me on this channel. This was one of the most fun spoiler reviews I've ever done, because we got to dive into the movie. I thought there was a lot of great conversation. I can't wait to come and see what everybody else has to say about our conversation. Just all of that stuff, man. Thank you so much. And I'll go ahead and close out, because I know we've went over and everything. You guys can find me on YouTube at Austin Burke, on Twitter at The Burkinator. I do movie reviews and everything, like I said. But keep watching this guy's videos, because I love watching your videos, man. You're so good at what you do, and just keep doing it and spanning all different types of content and doing things that are different from everyone else. So I appreciate you having me on, man. It was a blast.
Thank you, Austin. Seriously. Oh my gosh. So like you said, check out his channel. And thank you guys so much for watching. Leave us comments, and we will catch you in the next video.